In today's video, I'm going to be covering the current problems that I'd say like 98% of home service businesses face when it comes to marketing their services and how to fix them. I'm going to mention the 3 steps to turn a boring service description into a client-attracting magnet, just changing a few little things on the wording. And then I'll explain how to implement these steps into every aspect of your online presence. So your website, your organic social media, and your paid advertising. And then finally, I'll walk through an example with some real numbers so you can start to see how the stuff that I'm saying can actually double your profits. That's not an exaggeration, but I want to walk you through exactly how I'm getting those numbers. For those of you who are new, my name is Sean. I run Local Leap Media, which is a West Palm Beach-based digital marketing agency that specializes in lead generation and appointment setting for local home service businesses. And beyond that, I'm also a serious student of direct response marketing. So you'll probably hear me mention names like Dan Kennedy and Jay Abraham quite a bit on this channel. And that's because I think not only are their marketing principles timeless, but they're also overlooked. And so I want to do my best to bring their messages to people like you, to small businesses that probably wouldn't come across their materials in the first place. All right, but enough about me. Let's dive into the topic. All right, so what is the current problem with most home service businesses marketing? Well, there are 2 main problems that I want to talk about. The first is that most businesses default towards feature-focused marketing instead of benefit-focused marketing. And on the other side, most small businesses try to appeal to everyone. And so let's look at the first one. What is feature-focused marketing versus benefit-focused marketing? Well, here's an example of feature-focused marketing. We offer quality service. We offer dependability. We offer good prices. We are professionals, okay? So in those descriptions, which, I mean, they're, yes, pretty generic, but I'm sure you have seen those in real home service businesses before. The problem is most of those messages, I mean, everyone has those things. It's not a differentiator. And so you're basically wasting this opportunity you have, this small window of time. If someone finds your brand somehow, and all they see is we offer quality, dependability service, it's like, okay, so does everyone else. So you have not differentiated yourself. And the reason is because you're focusing on the features of the service. Now, what's the alternative? Well, you have benefit-oriented marketing. And that is where instead of saying we offer quality, service, dependability, good prices, you instead say, or you start by asking yourself, well, what does that actually mean to the person who's buying? Well, one example would be that you provide ease of service. You have this problem that you need fixed. We will create your dream kitchen, your dream lawn, your dream fill in the blank, and you won't have to lift the finger. So that's, I mean, we're going to go a little bit deeper than that. But that's a great start to transition from, instead of talking about the features of your service, talk about the benefits. And a way to think about benefits is, what does it mean to the customer or the client? So that's how you differentiate it. Feature focus is, okay, what's good about this product? Benefit is, what's good about it for the customer? What's the benefit for them? But then on the other side, I had also mentioned that most small business, home service businesses try to appeal to everyone. And, you know, I'm saying that with a little asterisk. Obviously, if someone doesn't own a home, you're not going to be reaching out to those people. But even reaching out to any homeowners in your service area, that is still a much bigger pool than you probably actually should be reaching out to. And so there is the logic of, you know, if I cast a wide net, I'll at least get some clients, some prospects. The problem though is when you cast a wide net, your messaging is going to default to being extremely generic. And so again, those 2 mistakes, they tie into each other. When you're using generic feature-focused marketing and you're reaching out to everyone, that's where 98% of people are just going to toss away your piece of direct mail, are just going to slowly scroll when they see your ad on social media. So what would be the alternative to that? Well, the alternative, because even if you're new, it's a little bit tough to know, okay, I still don't know what my type of main clients are going to be, but you can have some impression. I mean, you can assume that someone in a lower income bracket is less likely to use renovations or a landscaping service than someone in the higher up income brackets. So that's a very easy place to start. But you can also go a little bit deeper than that and use a technique that Dan Kennedy, I first heard it from him, called dog whistle copy. And so what is dog whistle copy? That's where maybe you are casting a wide net. However, in your messaging, you are talking to a very specific type of person. And you know that your thing will not get, like, maybe only 10% of the people who see your piece of mail or your advertisement. Maybe it'll only relate to 10% of them. But here's an example of what I mean. Are you considering selling your house? If so, it's worth getting a quote to renovate some stuff and quickly increase the value of your home before you sell. So it's pretty hard to find data on people who are thinking about selling their home, but by using that messaging, if someone had that in their head, they may think, okay, that's not a bad idea. Okay, I will reach out, I will call, I will fill in a form. And the reason that you're doing that, or the reason that works, is because you're not saying quality, service, dependability. You're looking at your service for a very specific use case for a very specific type of person. So the two main points from this section: avoid feature-focused marketing and avoid trying to appeal to everyone. All right, so now is the fun part. I'm going to go through the 3 steps that are going to transform your marketing message, and it will be custom tailored to you. And because of that, you're going to have to do some work. So I'm not just giving you the message. I'm going to have questions and prompts for you that I strongly encourage you to get out a pencil and paper or get out your notes app on your phone. And as you're listening to this, type out these ideas. So step 1 is to articulate the intangible benefits of your service. And I should mention, I'm going to be using landscaping in all the examples just to keep it consistent, but this obviously applies to any home service business. All right, so what is an intangible benefit? Well, I talked about benefits a little bit before, and benefits you can think of as what's in it for me as the client, prospect, or customer. But within benefits, we have tangible and intangible. So here's a very easy way to think about it, about the difference. Tangible benefits are stuff like, by using this service, you will save $1,000 a year on your XYZ bill. Okay, saving money is a tangible benefit. In the health and fitness world, a tangible benefit might look like, by doing this product or taking this supplement, you will lose 5 pounds in 30 days. So it's a very clear statement, a measurable statement. So that's what tangible benefit is. You can measure it, you can see it with your own eyes. Intangible, on the other hand, usually refers to emotional states. So here are some examples for a landscaping business. You'll feel pride in a beautiful yard, stress relief from not having to maintain the lawn. You will be the envy of the neighborhood. You'll be able to enjoy more time outside, doing activities with your family. So if you want a little hack, then I strongly encourage you to, if you do have reviews, to look through them and notice if anyone has mentioned intangible benefits, because that will be a key element as I get further in this video in figuring out how to craft the best messaging. But yeah, just check the reviews, but otherwise use your intuition. What do you think some emotional states would be seeing a perfected lawn, or in any other business, a perfect new bath or a perfect new kitchen? Now, once you've done that, step 2 is to convert those intangible benefits, the emotional states, into tangible outcomes. So again, I'm going to make this very, very simple. So what we want to do is turn that emotional state into something measurable and concrete. And there's a couple different ways to go about this, but I think a good question to use is, for insert your intangible benefit, for the feeling pride in your lawn, for that to be true, how would I know it? What does pride look like on the external level, on the measurable level? So again, I'll say that question. For stress relief, for feelings of stress relief from not having to maintain my yard, for that to be true, how would I know it? So here's an example for, I mentioned the thing about being the envy of your neighborhood. To turn that from intangible to tangible, you might say, and this is more of a claim, you'll receive at least 3 compliments from neighbors on your yard within the first month. So 3 compliments, a specific number. And compliments is something external. It is measurable. Here's another example with the stress relief. You'll have 2 extra hours every weekend to spend with your family, doing whatever you want to do. Or even better might be to name something. You'll get to spend 2 extra hours every weekend enjoying a picnic, enjoying your playing yard games with your family. Your home's curb appeal will increase, potentially adding XYZ number of dollars to its value. And so there are ways to actually put concrete numbers and look at national and state statistics that tell you what is the likelihood that a certain renovation will increase the value of someone's home. And so that becomes an excellent claim to use. And the key word there is potentially adding $10,000 of value or whatever dollar amount. And potential is important because, you can't guarantee something like that. There are way too many elements out of your control to be claiming or promising a certain dollar increase in home's value. And so now that I've given you some examples, take a moment to look at your list of 5 intangible benefits and see if you can turn them into tangible outcomes using what I just mentioned before. So I'll give you a minute to do that. Okay, I hope you did that exercise. Now we're going to move on to step 3. So keep in mind in step 2, make it as long as you want. I gave you the short and concise version, but as you're working these out, feel free to write out a full paragraph to kind of get the idea. And step 3 is going to be turning that statement that you had just crafted and start to use the customer's language or your client's language. So you're speaking in terms that make sense to them. And so the way you would do that, and I mentioned this a little bit before, but this is where it helps to research and look at client feedback, testimonials, reviews. What are the specific words your customers are using? Because I will tell you, it's going to vary from state to state, from income level to income level. There are just so many ways that different people communicate. And so you want to focus on those key words, those key phrases. So I mentioned stress relief earlier. Maybe someone uses words like worry-free or hassle-free. And I will mention, if you don't have a lot of reviews right now, look at your competitors. Look at the top competitors in your area and look at their client feedback. Because ideally, you would want clients like the ones they have. And so what are the words they use? So don't just limit it to what people have said about your business. Look at anyone talking about a business like yours and look at the specific phrases they use. And again, usually most people, when they're giving a review, they're not going to be poetic, but I would strongly encourage you to create a customer language glossary for your business. So I know that sounds like a hefty task, but all that means is whenever you notice something like, oh, my customer said worry-free instead of stress-free, just make a little note to use that in the future. And if you know something specific about that customer, like maybe they're in a certain zip code, then maybe that's limited to that zip code. Or maybe there's something specific about the product they had got. So there are a lot of different ways to go about that, but I would say the main thing is look at reviews. Look at the language customers are using in their own words, typed out in their own words. And if you really can't find too much good information from reviews, then the final thing I would recommend is calling up old customers and just talking to them, asking about these intangible and tangible benefits that they've seen. And you may have to lead them along a little bit. And by that, I mean, ask guiding questions. So this is not the same as putting words in their mouth, but instead of saying, oh, what'd you think of the service? You ask a question like, have you noticed any changes in the amount of time you have in your week since you've started using our landscaping service? So that's an example of a good leading question that is not putting words in their mouth. All right, so those are the 3 steps. First, figure out the intangible benefits of your service. Next, convert those intangible benefits into tangible outcomes by creating something that is measurable and we can see it with our own eyes. And then the third step is crafting those tangible statements and using language that your customers are already using. All right, now let's talk about implementation. So hopefully you have gotten at least 3, if not more, specific tangible outcome statements that have the language that your customers use. So now let's talk about what you can actually use these for. So I haven't crafted specific statements, but for this example, I'm just going to say generally a stress relief tangible benefit, a money increase, home value tangible benefit, and a become the envy of your neighborhood. So when it comes to your website copy, what I would strongly recommend is have someone else look at it and get rid of anything that sounds generic. And instead swap out those generic statements like quality, service, dependability, good prices. Get rid of those statements and insert your tangible outcome statements. For landscaping, call us if you want 5 extra hours in your week, if you want to be the envy of your neighborhood, and if you want more outdoor time with your family. So that sounds a lot better than, call us if you want better lawn maintenance. I hope you see the difference there, because people don't care about how good you are at cutting grass. I'm sure 90% of the businesses that you're competing with can do the exact same thing as you. But the way that you differentiate is by talking about what it means to your clients and customers. You explain that more clearly than anyone else, and they will choose you over the generic second outcome. Now on social media, you can start to do the exact same thing. Whether it's on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, you can keep posting as you would, but the only difference I would say is you have those statements that you use over and over again that you're using on your website, you're putting them in your captions. And I won't go too deep on social media, but I also want to mention, make sure that you have a clear call to action in every single social media post you have. That means either your phone number, a direct URL so that someone can instantly go from seeing your post, your ad, and instantly going to a place where they can submit a form to get more information. That's just a little side thing. The main point is make sure that the text, the copy in your captions is tangibly benefit oriented. And the final way to implement this is when it comes to asking for testimonials. Now, I will end up making another video that's very detailed about getting testimonials, getting the right testimonials. But I will just say for now, what I mentioned about the leading questions of when you talk to those customers later on and you know they're satisfied. You can get feedback from anyone, but you want to make sure that people are happy when you're asking for testimonials. I would ask questions that focus on what benefits did they get? What benefits did they see? That one, again, I'm not going to give too much detail on it, but let's just say at the very least, make sure that you have a formalized system to get testimonials. Make sure that you have a script or 5 questions or a 15-minute call, so you know that every single time you're asking these questions, trying to get the best information from those satisfied clients and customers. Okay, the best part, the financial impact, where this stuff that I've been talking about will actually start to put real money in your pocket. So I want to use a hypothetical example with some relatively conservative rates so that you can see the power of this, of making just a small tweak, even if it increases 10% of this aspect of business, 10% of this aspect, 10% of this aspect. It's going to increase exponentially. So let's consider a landscaping business that typically nets a $2,000 profit for a standard yard renovation. I'm assuming this is a $20,000 project, so a 10% margin. And again, I know that can vary widely for landscaping businesses, but I'm trying to use a relatively low number. Let's say instead of talking about dependability, good prices, and all that stuff, when you were talking to these prospects and you're trying to get those jobs, you were focused on explaining the tangible benefits. So things like the likelihood of a property value increase and what that percentage might be. And remember, you can try to find your own data, as in looking at clients you've serviced in the past, if any have sold their homes, but you can always resort to national statistics and state statistics. And another really clear thing that has a dollar impact is maybe it'll reduce their water bill or their electric bill. And so you might be able to calculate all the energy efficiency because they're saving that. Like let's say you renovated their kitchen or their bathroom, looking at that dollar amount and then boom, tacking it on to the project fee. And so you're not literally saying, hey, there's a $2,000 extra fee on this quote because, I think it'll save you $2,000 over 3 years. You're quoting at your semi-higher rate, so let's say $22,000 for the same service, but then you are also constantly mentioning the money being saved, the value being increased. So thinking about those tangible benefit statements. So let's assume this landscaping business, but let's say they're charging $22,000, and that would net a profit of $4,000 instead of $2,000. Because that stuff on top, that is just extra margin, just extra profit margin. So let's assume they generate 1,000 leads in a year through a ton of different marketing channels. They have a 3% conversion rate to schedule consultations. So that means 30 potential jobs. Now, if they maintain just a 40% close rate, so I'm trying to use simple numbers, 40% of 30, that would mean 12 completed jobs in a year. And when they're doing $2,000 profit per job, that's going to be $24,000 in net profit in that year. But again, if you emphasize the tangible benefits and can pull off contracts where you are increasing your profit margin to $4,000 per job, then those same 12 jobs would bring $48,000. So that is how I'm getting that extra $24,000 in your pocket without needing to find additional customers, without needing to find new revenue streams. It is simply by explaining your service in a more effective way. But it gets even better than that. Because when you start to communicate with tangible benefits, when you start to think from the perspective of the customer, the client, of what's in it for them, then that close rate of 40%, whatever your percentage is, will likely increase. So let's just say you can increase the close rate from 40% to 50%. That would mean 15 jobs in a year instead of 12. And so instead of $48,000 in profit, you've suddenly boosted that to $60,000 in profit. That's a $36,000 increase from the original pricing and close rate. But let me give another example with some smaller numbers. Let's say you're that home cleaning service business, and let's say you charge $200 for every house you clean. Let's say you have 100 regular clients, so that'd be a monthly revenue of $20,000. Let's say you had just been using the feature-focused marketing. Oh, we'll make your house sparkly clean. We use the best products for our cleaning. We use the most expensive vacuums and yada yada. If you switch to benefit-oriented language, let's say with those 100 regular clients, let's just say you get 10 more or 10% new clients from referrals because you're constantly using that benefit-oriented language. So 10 new clients times 200, 2,000. So that means $2,000 extra per month just by making a few small tweaks in the language, the marketing messaging that you're using. And again, that's going to be a $24,000 increase in revenue. But you also have to consider that there's the potential for a compound effect. So you might be increasing more clients who are coming from just seeing your stuff on social media. You're increasing your referral rate. But what if you also decrease your churn? And churn is basically what percentage of clients that are usually a regular monthly service, what percent are you losing per month? So it's really important to see that there are so many ways to measure how this can increase your revenue, increase your profits, increase your close rates, increase your referral rate, reduce your churn. And it's just a matter of what I said that what those 3 steps are. Just a matter of changing your generic slogan marketing messages to something that is a tangible benefit for your customer. It is not difficult to do. And I know I promised a lot at the top of this video, but I'm telling you, a few small tweaks can make a massive difference in the amount of revenue you're making in your business. All right, so what did I talk about in this video? At first, I mentioned the major mistakes that 99, 98% of home service businesses make, which is to be too feature focused. We're talking about, oh, this is what we offer, quality, service, dependability, instead of being benefit oriented. And the other major problem is casting such a wide net that you're forced to use a generic marketing message. And so the antidote there was to use dog whistle copy, which is where you're saying something that only a certain group of people will leap at. Even if it doesn't appeal to 90% of people, the fact that you're talking to 10% very clearly makes it more likely they'll convert than if you did a generic message and you got, say, 2% response rate, which is pretty normal. Then I talked about the 3 steps to transform your boring marketing message into something that compels people to come to you. And so those 3 steps again are: first, identify and articulate, put into words, the intangible benefits, the emotional benefits that your customers or clients are experiencing from your service. Then you want to convert those intangible benefits into tangible benefits. And the way you do that is by asking yourself, well, if someone feels pride in their lawn, how would I know that's true? So looking at measurability and something you can see with your own eyes. Do they smile more? Do they get more compliments? Do they save money on their house or increase the property value? So thinking about numbers. And the final step is to take those tangible statements and convert them into language your customers are already using. So, it's going to vary from business to business, from company to company, so I won't give too much detail on that. But the best way to figure out the way your customers are talking is by looking at reviews and literally calling old customers and asking them about what they thought of the product, the service, trying to figure out the benefits directly from the consumers themselves. And then finally, I talked about the financial impact of this, how a few small tweaks in wording can be the difference between blending in with the masses of businesses that do pretty much the same thing to standing out in a way that not only gets more leads, not only nurtures leads better, so increases your closing rate, not only increases the amount that you can sell a certain service or product for, so increasing your margin, but also increasing referral rate on the back end, increasing customer loyalty, reducing churn. I know I've thrown out a lot of jargon, but I hope you see that this is like the lowest hanging fruit that you can do, that you as a business owner are capable of doing. But I do have to mention, if you've really, if this feels like it was a little too complex, it went over your head, then click the link, the first link in the description, where you can fill out a form and we can hop on a call and work together in some way, shape, or form. Local media is currently looking for more home service businesses. The only thing that I will say is if you're making less than $15,000 per month in revenue, so that includes the project fee, if you're making less than that, it's probably not worth reaching out. So we do have a little bit of a threshold, a little bit of a minimum budget, but if you're making more than $15,000 and you want to grow even more to double and then quadruple your profits and your revenue, then look at that form, fill it out, and I will be personally giving you a call as soon as I can. Thanks for watching this video. Stay tuned for the next one.